Shalom, friends. Today I'm going to tell you about my third birth story. My third one is Benjamin. With Benjamin, I was past my due date. I can't quite remember how long, a few days. The doctor that was over my midwife, I believe, did not want me to go past a week. So we talked about bringing on labor naturally and what we could do about that. What she ended up doing was thinning my membranes. She puts a glove on and then she separates the amniotic sac from the wall of the uterus, and that helps my body to go into contractions, and it worked. So that was good. I was glad that I did not have to use any drugs. With my first one, Josiah, I used the Cervidil. That's like a tampon with drugs on it. And that thinned my cervix and that put me into contractions. I would prefer to go drug-free though, so I was glad that I was able to do that. And there's other ways to put your body into contractions as well, so you don't have to use drugs. I know someone, she drank castor oil and that worked for her. What else can you do? Oh, ginger root, that puts your body into contractions. So you wouldn't want to use that during your pregnancy. You don't want to make ginger tea during your pregnancy. But at the end of your pregnancy, if you wanted to go into labor, you can make ginger tea. And I've read it, and somebody she's like a healing doctor, she's like, that's what you could do to go into labor and not use drugs. So anyways, I think that it's good to be mindful of all of your options rather than just go the typical route. There are actually other options out there. I did not even know that with my first one when I got induced, since I saw the doctor and it was my first time. I had contractions during the night. They were random, nothing serious. By morning time, it was time to go to the hospital. So Aaron and I, we drove to the hospital, and they hooked the monitors to my belly. They attached the monitors so that they could keep an eye on my contractions and pay attention to the baby's heart rate. And I was able to walk the hallways in the labor and delivery area. And that's something I wanted to do to help bring contractions on quicker, to get it done and over with. I do remember, walking in the hallways. There were not supposed to be any family members over there. And these kids were, running around the hallways. This one boy, he almost bumped right into me. It was so frustrating. Here I am, doing my breathing exercises and dealing with contractions. That was annoying. But it was nice. It's always nice to just walk around with Aaron slowly down the hallways. And we stop whenever I have a contraction if they're hard. With Ben, I was able to go without getting the epidural. That was my goal. When it was time to push him out, I did get his head out fine. And then Benjamin got stuck. That was crazy. That was really something. We never had this midwife before, so this was our first experience with her. She was super calm. I kept trying to push, and she had his head in her hands, and she was trying to kind of maneuver him to help get him out, and it wasn't working. And so she pressed a button, and she says, "I need some help in here." And then a bunch of hospital staff came in. Seemed like a bunch. And she says to me, she says, "You're gonna have to turn around and get on your knees and grab onto the end of the bed." So I thought, I have the baby's head out, that's not possible. But I had to do it. After I had his head out, I had to turn around, grab onto the edge of the bed and get on my knees and try and push him out. And she was still trying to maneuver him. And I remember one of the nurses was pressing down on my belly to help try and get him out. I don't know how long it took. It probably was about a half an hour. It was rough. But he came out. She said, "I knew you had just enough space to get him out of there." She was super calm. She was very experienced. As they were cleaning me up, I heard all the hospital staff oohing and eyeing. I don't even know what they were doing. I was like, "What is going on in here?" And they were weighing the baby. And he was a big boy. Nobody could believe it. He was 10 pounds, 13 ounces. I couldn't believe it. I knew he was a big boy when I was carrying him. I couldn't move when I was sitting down. I couldn't stand up. If I was on my side laying, it was so hard to roll over. But yeah, that's why. And that's why I had a hard time getting him out. He was 10 pounds, 13 ounces, my Benjamin. So he was pretty much in like 3 to 6 month clothing practically right away. His face was purple, but that only lasted a day. Those little ones, they're so tough. So I was like a rock star at the hospital. It was kind of embarrassing. Let's see here. My stay at the hospital was fine. Because I had a big baby, I had some more bleeding afterwards, and so they kept an eye on me. They said that that's pretty typical, but they just don't want to see me lose too much blood. So, thankfully, I did not lose too much blood. I passed, like, at least one blood clot. Maybe two, I don't know. But all was well. I had my big baby boy. And the one thing that I realized with delivering Ben, and I think that is something that Aaron mentioned, it's something that Aaron mentioned to me, and that's how I realized it. That my experience delivering number 2, Isabel, which was really hard on me, really set me up to deliver Benjamin. Really gave me the confidence that if I can go through delivering Isabel, then I probably can go through delivering any baby. So that was something that I really needed with number 3, my Benjamin, with the trouble trying to deliver him after I had his head out. It certainly could have been possible for me to go into like a panic mode, because it was difficult and it was hard to get it done. But after delivering Belle, panic never came to my mind. So things got easier after I had Belle and after I had Ben. Yep, so that's all. The kids, they were proud siblings of their new brother, and that was really sweet to watch. Josiah, we would go in public and he would tell people, "That's my little brother." It was so cute. Until next time, shalom.
Shalom friends, Aaron here. I'm just hanging out on the tire swing in our backyard. And I was watching Theresa's video telling her birth story about Benjamin, our third child. And I wanted to mention that after we had Isabel, there's a story I'll tell about how God had spoken to me about how He wanted us to move from where we were living in western New York to southeastern Louisiana. No family down here, no job. It's a good story, I think. Anyhow, I was down here a couple of weeks without Theresa while she was up still in New York with our two children. And it was not until after she came down here with me that we found out that we were expecting Benjamin. I think it was a week or two. I should have asked Theresa. It was no more than 2 weeks after we got down here we found out we were expecting Benjamin. Some people thought we were crazy then for having our third child so fast, so quickly, especially after such a big change like moving 1,300 miles and there being quite a bit of uncertainty for us as to what our immediate future held. That's funny to think about it now, actually, that people thought we were crazy for having 3 when we have 10 now. Anyhow, Benjamin, I wanted to mention, was an incredibly fast walker. I think he was, at least in our experience, really fast, something like 10 months, and the boy hardly crawled. He crawled, it seemed like, for a couple of days, and then he just decided to get up on his legs and start running around. And in that way, he's always been like an excellent climber. He always had good balance, and he's built a little differently than our other boys. They're all tall and thin, kind of like Theresa and I are, but they're muscular. Not to say that Ben isn't, but he's more wiry. He's lighter. He's got a lighter build, and I think that really helps him as a climber. He's been really good at that. And it strikes me as I reflect on Theresa telling the story about Isabel and then telling the story about Benjamin and how they both were difficult births, that I would say that as young children, they were the most difficult. Isabel was a very strong-willed child. She was difficult to deal with early on. You wouldn't know that now, as we said about her, as we reflected on her birth story. And Benjamin we had quite a bit of difficulty with. I think maybe we'll share some of that, I don't know. He's an excellent son, and he's an excellent big brother. He's a very good boy. But there was some difficulty. And I think it's funny that if I would say who were the 2 most difficult births for Theresa, it would obviously be those 2. And then it seems pretty obvious that as young children they were the most difficult. So that's interesting. So Theresa said that he was sort of stuck. His head was pretty big. We kind of joke around, he had like this giant pumpkin head. But even more so, his shoulders were very wide because he was so big. It's really amazing. Now, I remember going to midwife appointments with Theresa and having our midwife tell Theresa that she didn't think that Benjamin was very big. And Theresa had said that she thought he probably was because she felt so big. And I remember very distinctly looking at her and thinking, her belly is enormous. And I think that baby's really big. And our midwife had asked how big the other 2 children were, and they were both right around 8.5 pounds. And she said, "Oh, I think he's smaller than that." So she didn't think he was even maybe 8 pounds, like he might be 7 something. And then to be closer to 11 was pretty amazing. And she's definitely was, like, they were talking about her in the maternity wing. They were wheeling around in a wheelchair. And, obviously, they wouldn't let her walk around after she just gave birth to a big baby like that. And when they take you from the delivery area to the next room, they'll wheel you down in a wheelchair. But as they were doing that, I remember the nurse who was wheeling her around would stop at the different nurse stations along the way and say, "Oh, this is her, or this is the girl who gave birth to that 11-pound baby," and they were all just sort of amazed by it. And it's pretty amazing. Not only just because of his size, but because of Theresa's size. She's not a really big person. She's tall at 5'7", but she has a very petite frame. At some point, we, measured our wrists and your elbows and those different measurements you can do to find out what sort of skeletal structure you have. And I have a small to medium frame, and she has a really petite frame. She probably didn't mention it, but when she was pregnant with Josiah, she could feel her hips widening. I'll mention that to her. Maybe she'll say more about that in her next video. But she's still very slender, very slim, but she was not very hippie. She was pretty straight, and it was pretty noticeable that her hips had widened out. And I think that she never ended up going back to being as narrow in her hips as she was before, although I would say that her hips do seem to narrow back down a bit. And then when she's pregnant and she gets closer to the due date, her hips seem to widen up again. And it's one of those things where I'm actually not over marveling at what a mom's body does, the incredible changes that it goes through from what's going on inside with hormones. I mean, just the fact that there's a little person being fashioned inside there, formed and built inside there, and then for mom's body to go through all the changes to go back to not carrying a baby. It's pretty incredible. So yeah, his shoulders were stuck, and boy, the midwife, she knew how to hold on to him. She really had a hold of his head, and that's why his head was so purple. And it was. I mean, I remember, I still joke about it, the first few pictures I took of her holding him, she's all concerned looking at his purple head. But the next day, his head looked normal. And I mean, his head was dark purple. It was crazy. And her looking a lot more relaxed as she was holding him and looking at him. Let's see. I would think, Theresa maybe touched on this, but I echo this with her, that we really appreciated the midwife that we had at that time, because she was very calm and she had a great deal of experience, and this situation did not make her nervous at all. She handled it really well. And I'm pretty convinced that, as with anything in life, if you have the right person doing the job, things are going to be better. And for that delivery, it seems like without a question that midwife was one of the right people that we could have had there for him. But she did kind of comment later that she was amazed at how big he was, and that she remembered that Theresa had said that she really felt like he was bigger, and that she was never going to question Theresa again with regards to the size of her babies. So that was funny. But that's all. He's a good boy, and we're really grateful that we have him, and that's all I have to say about that. So, until next time. I said I had nothing else to say, but I just remembered as I was putting the video together that there was something Theresa forgot to say about Isabel's name and Benjamin's name. Now, I think one of us said something about how we always knew Josiah would be a boy. We also always knew that Isabel would be a girl. before she was conceived, the way I remember it, Theresa may remember it a little bit differently. I think she'll maybe share something about it if she has a different point of view. That she came downstairs one day and either asked me what I think about the name Isabel or just told me. I think she just told me she liked the name Isabel, and I said, so we're going to have a girl and her name's going to be Isabel. And she said, well, that's not exactly what I'm saying. And I remember telling her that I think it was. But really, from that point forward, we always expected that our next child would be a girl. We really felt like we knew it. We knew she would be a girl, and her name was always going to be Isabel. And her name is the Spanish spelling of Isabel, Isabel, not Lle. And it means, in Spanish, consecrated to God. Now with Ben, I do remember very distinctly that I came home from work one day and Theresa told me that she liked the name Benjamin. And the way she said it, she really said it with quite a bit of conviction. And I joked with her, so I don't get a say. Got to go back a little bit with him. We have a mutual friend who was a labor and delivery nurse, and she had said to me that she felt like there was a little something extra for people who waited to find out what the baby was. And since we already had a boy and a girl, I suggested it to Theresa that maybe we wait and find out. And Theresa always would say that she doesn't like surprises and that she didn't want to do that. So I put it out of my mind, figured it's fine with me, we'll find out. Now with Josiah we had a sonogram, but we knew he was a boy beforehand. Had the sonogram with Isabel, but did not find, we found out, but we knew she would be a girl before we had the sonogram. With Benjamin, I think it was the last sonogram Theresa got at that time. She'll tell you, I think, that she's avoided sonograms, and she'll talk to you a little bit about that. But did have the sonogram, but we didn't find out. The funny thing about it was we never wondered whether or not he was going to be a boy. We always knew he would be a boy. We really were just sure of it. And so I don't recall thinking much about baby names. We certainly did not think about girl names at all. Like we didn't think about boy names with Isabel, and we didn't think about girl names with Josiah. And with Benjamin, I don't know how much I even spent time thinking about names. I don't think I did. Came home from work and Theresa said, I like the name Benjamin. I said, oh, so I don't get a say. She tells me, no, you just have to think of something I like better. And I laughed and I said, well, Benjamin's a good name. And it was, just I really felt good about it. So again, I think that God was speaking to Theresa about their names. She spoke about Josiah's name, then Isabel's name, and Ben's, and that kind of changed after that. So then she said to me, what about the middle name? I was thinking either Michael or Aaron. And I said, not Aaron. I like Michael better. And she said, well, that's what I was thinking. And so he was Benjamin Michael, just as simple as that. And of course, I would think with him, as was probably the case with Josiah and Isabel, people, at least one or two people, probably told us, well, you can't know, you might be surprised, I think you might be having a girl, whatever. And of course, he came out, he was a boy, and he was Benjamin Michael, just like we always knew he would be. So that's that. Yeah. So we knew boy, girl, boy. God spoke to Theresa about their names. And with Josiah, I didn't like it. And then he spoke to me too. But he definitely spoke to Theresa about Isabel and Ben. And she told me basically what their names would be. And I was good with that, and I agreed. All right, that is this time actually it for this video. Shalom, friends.